Hello and welcome to the first edition of Focus BC. It's a brand new show where every week we'll be pushing for answers on the issues that matter to you. Of course, we start with municipal elections. They are right around the corner. People across BC heading to the polls on October the 20th. Obviously, at this point, we don't know who's going to be voted in. But what we do know about the elections this time around, it is going to be a huge time for change, especially in Greater Vancouver. Let's have a look at this. 12 of the region's current mayors are not seeking re-election. That means the gate is wide open in communities from West Vancouver to White Rock. One of the most contentious races is in BC's biggest city, Vancouver, and that is where we start today. 6 of the candidates from that race joining us. Let's start with independent Kennedy Stewart, who's at our CKNW studio. Shauna Sylvester, who's also an independent, joining us from downtown Vancouver. There they are now. And from ProVancouver, David Chen, who's in our newsroom in Burnaby. We are going to start with housing affordability. Thank you all very much for joining us. But housing affordability is by far and away the biggest issue of concern for Vancouverites. Let's start with you, Kennedy Stewart. You have already made a bold statement saying you're going to triple the empty homes tax. How is that going to work?
Right. Well, on October 20th, voters will have a clear choice. They have a choice between Ken Sim, who's running for the NBA, who has no experience and he has no plan to solve this affordable housing crisis, or they can vote for me, that's been an MP for 7 years, that's delivered in Ottawa, and I have a clear plan to tackle this affordable housing crisis. The way I'll do that is to build 85,000 units over 10 years. 25,000 of those will be for people who are working in the city, run by nonprofits. 25,000 will be purpose-built market rental housing, and the rest, 35,000, will be the regular housing that we see built by the market around the city. So I have a clear plan, I have the experience, and unfortunately, Mr. Sim has neither.
So you're really just building on the fact that, you were a federal MP, and based on that, you think you're way ahead of the other candidates as well?
Well, no, I just know campaigns. This is my 4th campaign, major campaign that I've been in. It feels very good on the ground. I'm not taking anything for granted, of course, but clearly the race is lining up between myself and Ken Sim for the MPA. And Ken Sim has no plan. He says he's going to treat Vancouver like a business and voters like customers. That doesn't work, and that shows his inexperience.
All right, we'll come back to you in a little while. I just want to bring in Shauna Sylvester. You're running as an independent, and even though Kennedy Stewart just now is kind of having jabs at Ken Sim, saying he doesn't have enough experience, when it comes to experience, I guess that what is pretty much said. Could it be said for you as well? Do you take that personally too?
No, I don't take it personally because I have 30 years experience, not the 7 years that Kennedy Stewart is talking about. And I've worked on all the major housing issues in this city, including being the key facilitator on the Mayor's Task Force on Affordable Housing and working across the country on housing issues. So I've got lots of experience, lots of corporate experience to bring to bear, and I am the only true independent candidate, not having any political affiliations to the NDP or otherwise.
Kennedy Stewart has just mentioned these 85,000 units on top of, and more, just a couple of minutes ago. Shauna, in your platform, you're saying we've spent way too much time talking about supply, but it's actually about need when we're talking about housing affordability. Now, how are the two different? What do you mean by that statement?
I think what we have is a problem where everyone's talking about the number of units, and we're not talking about real results. We have to get to 3% vacancy rates. We have to have affordability that matches the salaries that we're bringing in. So that's the outcome that we're going for. If we just talk about supply, all we're doing is providing more supply to an international market. We're not really developing the homes that families need in this city, that students need, that new immigrants need. And that's what I want to do. I really want to focus on what Vancouverites need.
Sorry to interrupt you, but isn't there a need because there's a lack of supply?
I don't think the issue is what are we building? And we need to build purpose-built, affordable rental. We need to provide homes for people who are homeless. We need to provide for the missing middle. And that's the problem. In 2012, we said we needed more supply, and what did we get? We got more luxury condos. That's not what we need.
So you would do what then?
People of this city need.
You would do what?
I would create the kind of homes people need until we got to 3% vacancy rate. I would renew the leases on cooperatives. I would create spaces for co-op housing and for co-housing. I would support our community, nonprofit sector to really create the homes for seniors that they need, to create the homes for people who are living on the street. I would do what Vancouverites need, not what our international market needs.
Let me bring in David Chen from ProVancouver. Is that something that you support as well? Is that part of the kind of platform you're putting out there, supporting co-op housings, concentrating more on need, less on supply?
Well, we have to be very careful about this because it is not a supply equation. The reason why housing has disconnected from local incomes is because we have a problem with unregulated global capital. This includes interprovincial as well as international. One of the challenges, especially around purpose-built rentals right now under the Rental 100 program, is it's a new way to build rental housing that is still profitable, and the new vehicle that developers are using to market this to offshore and international companies. We've gotten information today actually from builders that this is actually going on. So the concern is that we want to build a large supply of co-op and social housing. That's something that retains control within the government, and we have to maintain covenants on the system to make sure that we have affordable rents. That includes keeping the ratio of 1/3 of welfare, 1/3 of Hills rate, and then 1/3 of truly affordable, which would be 30% of your pre-tax income for the median income of that area.
What are your thoughts on densification?
Well, densification is sort of needed, but we again have to be very careful. So this is actually why we went to the public hearing to oppose the mass rezoning that occurred. The challenge is that Patrick Condon has already said that we cannot do this without a community plan. That's putting the cart in front of the horse. And if you think about that, if you build without a blueprint, what's the chances that your end result is going to be something that you want?
Okay, but from what I've heard and from what you said now, you're not really in support of the densification, certainly not what was passed through just a couple of days ago, correct?
No, we need a community plan, and our party has stood behind this concept that the province has given us a new power that allows us to rental zone areas. And what we want to do is we want to take the transit corridors and zone that for rental zoning, because that area is where speculation is the highest, and that's what drives our market.
David, I'm just going to leave you there for a second. Kennedy Stewart, you are leading in the polls right now, quite a strong contender in this mayoral race. What are your thoughts on densification, what was pushed through this week?
Well, of course, we have to address both supply and demand. So I have outlined my clear plan for supply, which we're not getting from any other candidate. But on demand, of course, I said that of all new units that are built in the city, 1/3 to 1/2 will be protected from speculation through both use of zoning regulations and then the type of housing we build, which would be this rental housing, affordable rental housing that's run by nonprofits. So, of course, the city, we're going to have a population growth. We will be densifying. We also have to do this in consultation with the neighborhoods. Of course, I did work at the City of Vancouver in the planning department, and that's what I did was community consultation. So I'm very, very familiar with how that works and how a community has to be involved.
So if people vote you in, that is the thought process you're going to pretty much follow on and carry on pushing through. From what you've just said there. Shauna
That's
Sylvester,
right. We might make some adjustments.
Shauna Sylvester, just want to get your thoughts on that. If you get voted in, is that something that you would carry on pushing through, which will effectively change a lot of neighbourhoods in the Vancouver area?
I think what I'm hearing, particularly from West Side families, is they're tired of their neighborhoods hollowing out. Kids aren't on the street. They've lost their customer bases on Dunbar, on West 10th. There's just not a population. They have too many empty homes. And they want to create gentle densification. They want to bring their community back. And so they want to see densification that fits with the character of their neighborhoods. I think that that's something that we have to work towards, but we can't just create the supply without having an affordability mechanism. So if you're a landowner and you want to create purpose-built, affordable rental, then we're going to fast-track you through City Hall and ensure that you don't have to pay the kind of permits. But if you want to create market rental, which seems to be what Kennedy Stewart is asking for, well, then we're going to ask you to pay a fee, and in turn, we're going to put that towards affordable rental. And that's the difference in the plan that I'm offering.
But we have to be careful with that, because both of you were talking about doing stuff without actually thinking about a plan. Andy Yan just put into an article today that said that with this densification, this mass rezoning with no plan, it's actually going to favor densification of the east side because the properties are cheaper. It's actually going to leave the west side completely untouched because of the cost of land. So you're going to get the reverse effect that you're actually looking for. And this is why Patrick Cotton said we need to have a community plan before we do this. And
I would love to carry on this conversation with all three of you, but sadly we won't then have enough time with the other three candidates from the race that we want to speak to. So Kennedy Stewart, Shauna Sylvester and David Chen. Thank you all very much for your time. It obviously goes by very, very fast. Coming up after the break, we are going to speak to Ken Sim from the NPA, Hector Bremner, who wanted to be with the NPA, but they decided against it, so he's now set up his own party, and Wei Young, former Conservative MP, on why they should be the next mayor of Vancouver. Back in a couple of minutes.